A crew of masked men suddenly burst into a local police station, all armed and ready. The place, which should have been full of officers, had just a handful inside. Earlier, most of the team had been sent elsewhere. The few that stayed behind couldn't hold off the intruders. Oddly enough, the attackers weren't after anything big, just one man, sitting quietly in a holding cell. He was a low-level dealer, someone nobody paid much attention to. But something about him made these dangerous people risk everything. That's where the story starts, with David and the man he once fought in the ring, Enzo. David and Enzo were squaring off in a crowded arena, both showing powerful moves and grit. Enzo locked his legs around David's neck, trying to bring him down. But David used his strength, lifted Enzo, and threw him down hard. The match ended right there, but it didn't feel like a victory. David couldn't shake what happened next. Enzo didn't get back up. Days later, David went to the cemetery to speak quietly to a grave filled with regret. But someone saw him, Enzo's wife, Emma, and her son, Leo. When Leo spotted David in another part of town, a man named Andrew was cornered in an abandoned warehouse in Marseille. He was jumped by masked thugs who hit him without mercy. Early the next day, a neighbor called in a report about gunshots heard the night before. Police officers arrived at the warehouse. She spotted dried blood and followed it to a corner where 3 men were found dead. The area was sealed off fast. Kenza pointed a finger at the Mansour gang, known for this kind of brutal work. But one of the officers, Vasil, didn't agree. He accused Kenza of letting personal grudges cloud her view. The chief sided with Vasil and pulled Kenza aside, reminding her to stick to facts, not just gut feelings. Kenza didn't like it, but she let it go for the moment. Her phone rang. It was a call from someone insisting on meeting privately. That someone was Leo. He claimed he'd witnessed what happened in the factory, that the Mansour gang was behind it. Worse, he'd made a mistake. He thought he was hiding, but they saw him. A police car pulled up in the distance. Spooked, Leo took off. Kenza tried to follow, but couldn't keep up. Leo had already jumped on a motorbike and disappeared. A site manager noticed him and offered him a position on a land reclamation team near the coast. After his first shift, David rode home on his motorbike. At the doorstep, he spotted a visitor, Emma. She hadn't come for small talk. David welcomed her inside. They sat and she spoke softly. Since the night of the match, David had left boxing behind. He chose a quieter life, staying out of the spotlight. Emma, on the other hand, had been living with sorrow and guilt. Her son, Leo, had left months ago to stay with a cousin in Marseille. After that, things went wrong. Leo got caught up in the drug world. Emma didn't notice in time. When she did, it was too late. Then a few days ago, Leo called her in panic. After the call dropped, she alerted the police, but they didn't take it seriously. To them, Leo was just another small-time dealer. With no one else willing to help, she came to David. She knew he didn't owe her anything, so instead, she handed him a bracelet, something she got from a church. She told him it would protect him if he agreed to bring Leo home. David couldn't say no. He took the bracelet and prepared to leave for Marseille. When David reached the city, he drove straight to the address Emma gave him. Outside the apartment building, he saw a man standing around. David used his large frame to convince the man to watch his bike, then went inside. The apartment door was unlocked. Inside, furniture was thrown everywhere, and the place looked like someone had gone through it in a hurry. David didn't get far before he felt cold metal press against the back of his head. It was Kenza. She was already looking for Leo. David quickly explained he was sent by Emma. Kenza checked his story, then lowered her weapon. They searched the room together and found a photo, a young girl David didn't recognize, but Kenza seemed to know. They left and tracked down the man from outside, Harun. He told them Leo's cousin Hugo had been attacked by a gang and taken to a hospital called Clerval. Kenza headed there right away. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a man named Mansell and his right-hand man Wade drove into their hideout. Mansell asked around. "Any word on Leo?" "Nothing yet." He ordered his crew to keep searching. Then, he stepped into a container where someone was tied up. Andrew. Mansell warned Andrew by threatening his family. Screams could be heard. Andrew finally broke and told them where the stash was hidden. Mansell wasted no time and sent his men to collect it. Back at the hospital, Kenza arrived in the parking area. David had gotten there ahead of her. She warned him again not to interfere. He didn't listen. Left with no other option, she brought him inside, but told him to stay back. Outside, one of Mansell's men watched from a distance and began handing out posters of Leo, with a cash reward. Inside the hospital, Kenza found Hugo. She showed him the photo. Hugo said the girl was Inaya, and though he didn't know her well, he remembered her sister Fatou worked at a club called Pop Nightclub. Kenza didn't push further. Hugo was badly injured. On her way out, David stopped her. He wanted to know who had attacked Hugo. Kenza said it was the Mansour gang. They were spreading like poison across the city. Outside, she spotted two men from that gang hanging around. She confronted them. They gave weak excuses. She warned them off. One of them smirked, mentioning her brother. That hit a nerve. Kenza snapped and attacked. David pulled her back before things went too far. Word of the incident reached her boss. Kenza was called in and suspended from duty. Walking out, she saw her co-workers looking the other way. Only Ian, her partner, gave her the time of day, but even he was cautious. She left, crushed, but David was waiting outside. He asked for any leads. She gave him the address of Fatou's workplace. As he walked off, she stopped him. She wasn't about to let him go in alone. When David asked about her grudge against the Mansour gang, she avoided the question. All she said was, "Leo is my informant. I need to keep him safe." That evening, David and Kenza arrived at Pop Nightclub. The place was loud, filled with music and flashing lights. They scanned the crowd carefully until they spotted Fatou. Kenza approached her calmly to ask about Inaya, but Fatou grew suspicious right away. But their conversation caught the eye of the club's manager, Barry. He walked over, clearly annoyed. David tried to explain. They weren't there to start trouble. He picked up his walkie-talkie and quietly called security. A group of strong men came out of the back and surrounded David. Kenza quickly pulled out her baton to defend herself, but they were outnumbered. David and Kenza were both beaten and dragged outside, left bruised on the ground. He saw Emma's bracelet still wrapped around his wrist. That small reminder gave him a sudden rush of energy. This wasn't the end. Kenza called after him, thinking he was out of his mind, but David pushed forward, throwing a punch at the nearest guard and knocking him to the floor. He climbed over the bar, heading toward Fatou, who had fled upstairs in panic. More men rushed to stop David, but he fought with skill, using his boxing background to take them down, one after another. Kenza followed inside, trying to back him up. She saw David disappear into the upper level, still chasing Fatou. When he finally reached her, David softened his tone. The click of a shotgun echoed through the air. David froze. But instead of danger, it was Kenza, holding a rubber bullet gun. She explained they were not enemies. She said Leo and Inaya were staying in an old apartment building in a neighborhood called Flevron. The area was known for being lawless. Police usually avoided it, so she could still move freely without raising alarms. And David wasn't part of the force. That made them the perfect. He took off his shirt to treat the wounds. As she helped him, her eyes landed on a photo frame sitting on the shelf. David noticed and asked about the man in the picture. Kenza hesitated, then shared something personal. The man was her brother. Years ago, when he tried to help clean up the community, he got into a conflict with the Mansour gang. Not long after, he disappeared. Kenza later received a video. Her brother had been captured, tortured, and killed. The gang made sure she knew, but they hid their tracks well, and no solid proof ever surfaced. That failure haunted her. Kenza swore to bring them down one day, even if it meant walking a dangerous line. The next morning, the 3 nightclub goons who had been knocked out the night before went to the police station. They filed a complaint. The officers reviewed the security footage. The chief was furious. Ian, still loyal to Kenza, called her secretly to warn her about the new search orders. To find the right unit, Kenza called out softly at the door. Leo opened it, nervous, guarded, but listening. Meanwhile, Fatou was already being questioned back at the station. Eventually, she gave up Leo's location. Back in Flevron, the chief was organizing a team to move in. Word also reached Mansell.